Alright, in lesson 9.5, we're going to be talking about identifying parts of a circle and finding the radius, the diameter, and the circumference. So let's start off looking at what are some key terms and vocabulary for 9.5. And we have a circumference, which we'll call C. And then we have this little pi symbol, and we'll use 3.14 or 3.1415, but sometimes we use just the pi symbol. And then we have D, and D means our diameter. The other vocab that we'll have here is R, and R will be our radius. So let's check out what some of these vocab terms mean. So a circle, in general, is just a set of points in a plane that are the same distance from a point called the center. And so if we were to identify on our example here, our center point is this point right here in the center. And then we have our radius. Our radius is going to be a segment that connects the center to the circumference. And in our example here, we have a radius being this line right here, where it goes from the center outside to the circumference, or to the circle part. And then we have a chord. And a chord is a segment that has both endpoints on the circle. And while we're looking at chord, we'll look at diameter. And that diameter is a chord, but it's special that it passes through the center of our circle. So in our example here, we have a diameter that passes through the center. So this is our diameter. And then we have our chord, which goes through the circle, but not through the center. And our circumference is just the distance around a circle. So let's take a look at some labeling again. So the radii shown in circle R, and we're calling this circle R because the center is point R. So the radii, we could say, are ER, and we put a line over it, and then we have another radii of DR, where we go from D to R, to our center, E to R, and our last one we can have as BR, where we go from this outside and it goes to our center. All these are going to be the same value, the same distance. They're all going from the center outside of the circle. And the chords of the circle can be AB, where we go from the outside and crossing, or from one side of the circle to another. Another one can be DC, where we go from the outside of our circle. My pen can catch up. And then we have our main one where we have, or our diameter, where we have DB, or we'll call it BD, where we are going across the whole circle but passing through the center. So, looking at our circle R, what's the diameter shown? Well, it's going to be BD that we just said before. Alright, finding the radius and diameter. On July 22nd, 2002, the world's largest wooden nickel was unveiled in San Antonio, Texas. The radius of the wooden nickel is 80 inches. What's its diameter? Well, diameter, we know that that passes through the center and goes all the way across. Well, the diameter, the formula for radius, or formula for diameter is 2r, which means that we're multiplying or doubling the radius. Alright, and then we have our substitution part where we know that the radius is 80 inches. So I'm going to say 2 times 80 And then we simplify, and 80 times 2 is 160. So the diameter is 160 inches. Surface of one type of trampoline is bounded by a circular frame with a 7-foot radius. Find the circumference of the frame to the nearest foot. So circumference, the formula for circumference is pi d. And so we will use 3.14. And we say that this is about because pi is never ending, and we're kind of cutting off pi at 3.14 instead of continuing on into its infinite value. And so we 3.14, and we're multiplying it by its diameter, which is 7, or its 7-foot radius. So we need to substitute and say that 2 times 7 for d, because that's our radius, so we have 14. Oh, well, we substituted 3.14 for pi. So I'm saying 14 for my diameter here, and I multiply and say that it is 44 feet, or about 44 feet. So our correct answer choice would be B. Alright, you go ahead and practice and try it on these next ones. We need to find the radius when d is equal to 6 centimeters and a circle has a radius of 11 meters. What expression describes the circumference of the circle in meters? Alright, so find the radius when d equals 6 centimeters. Well, we know that d is equal to 2r. So if I know that d is 6, I can substitute 6 for d. And then I'm solving for r, so I see multiplication 2r, and so I'm going to do the opposite, which means divide. So I divide. That cancels out my 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 equals r, so 3 centimeters equals our radius. And then a circle has a radius of 11 meters. So radius is 11 meters. What expression describes the circumference of the circle in meters? Well, we know that circumference is equal to pi d. Or we could say that circumference is equal to 2 pi r. So if I plug in and say, well, my radius is 11, I can plug in here for r and then multiply it by 2. And then multiply it by pi, or I can multiply, I know that radius is, or 2r equals my diameter, so I can either do that and then get my diameter here. Well, since they gave us radius, I'm going to use, I get the same thing either way, but I'm going to say that circumference is equal to 2 pi, and then I have 11. So circumference is equal to, we'll substitute 3.14 for 22. And so when I multiply 3.14 times 22, I get 69.08 meters for our circumference. But it says what expression, so I could either have my pi d right here or 2 pi r. Those would be your actual answers since it's asking for an expression. If it wanted you to find the actual value of it, then it'd be somewhere at the 69.08 meters. That is the end for 9.5. Let me know if you have any questions.